This is a modern data warehouse small and medium business pattern overview. And my name is Galina. I'm a cloud solution architect for data and AI here in Microsoft New Zealand. The agenda for today is a brief introduction, which we're doing now. Then we'll look at modern data warehouse patterns on Azure native services. Then we'll move to the small and medium business variation of that pattern. We'll talk about when to use it and when not to. And then we'll open the floor for questions, and hopefully I'll point you to other interesting resources on this topic. So this is me. I'm originally from Russia. You see the snow-covered Moscow Red Square. Me and my family, we now live in sunny, shiny New Zealand. I'm software developer by trade, where I've invested 15 years of my life, but then I moved to architecture, now looking after data and AI domain for New Zealand customers. We will be talking about modern data warehouse existing patterns. And the first that comes to mind when talking on this topic is analytics end-to-end with Azure Synapse Analytics. This pattern is well established. You can find it on Azure Architecture Center. So let's review the highlights of this. So the first, probably biggest benefit that this pattern adds is establishing of enterprise-wide data hub concept, which unites the relational data sources that are here on this diagram persisted in a dedicated SQL pool of Azure Synapse Analytics, and unrelational semi-structured data which comes from Azure Data Lake. Some of this information may be coming from streaming data, others would be coming from semi-structured data straight to the data lake through batch processing, for example. The concept of enterprise-wide data hub allows to have a single pane of glass across all of the data estate and enable the centralized reporting for analysts. It also gives the possibility to unite structured data with unstructured data and have big data processing tools available to do so, including Spark. This pattern also highlights semantic modeling and powerful visualization tools to ease the analysis of your data, and it also shows how the sharing of the data sets can be done for internal and trusted external parties. This pattern shines for big data estates, usually 1 terabyte plus data warehousing solutions, and covers a lot of aspects of enterprise data estate in general. Now, let's talk about modern data warehouse for SMB pattern. The pattern actually emerged in New Zealand within last 6 months, and it was published to International Azure Architecture Center. So why has it emerged in New Zealand? Partially because New Zealand enterprise customers has less volume of data on an international scale, and having the majority of their data warehouse in a size band of 300-600 megabytes, and also not projected to grow over 1 terabyte within the next 3 years. These customers usually have SSIS packages as the main tool of their ETL processing on-prem, and they're looking for a cost-efficient solution to move their on-prem SQL service to Azure. Offering them the MPP platform with this setup seems to be not a very cost-efficient solution. So Azure SQL DB seems to be an organic choice for them, especially if their SSIS packages are mainly orchestrating the stored procedures defined within. So you would ask me why do we need Synapse here? Why is it not Azure SQL DB alone? And that's for the reason because these organizations are desperate to innovate. They also have the sources of data that they're willing to inject. And the number of sources is approximately on the same range as for bigger organizations. It's unstructured data from the IoT sensors and other devices that's coming here on a fast path. That would be productivity tools that are currently helping them to manage their estate. They're desperate to merge these data sources with other streams of work. And they probably also have operational sources, usually relational, that consume to the daily batch for their data warehouse from which they're doing operational reporting. So the requirements of these customers are actually the same as the big customers would have. They want to merge the data, structured and unstructured. They want to have big data tools to do the processing over data lake. Yes, they don't have experience of the big data platforms on-prem because that was never the challenge for them. They never had big data volumes, so they probably don't have experience of Spark on-prem. But they start to understand that having these big data technologies available to the people really makes a difference. It opens up the data science paths. It opens the real processing on streams, doing real-time use cases for data science and other things, real-time reporting as well. Very common, we see the requirement to do integration between the Dataverse, which is the data platform now uniting Dynamics and Azure Power Platform, which can be exported to the data lake. Once exported, it can be meshed with other relational sources, but most importantly, it can be now queried and meshed using the T-SQL tools and Spark tools as part of the serverless analysis. And that becomes really powerful for them because not only they can do meshing, they can also do data science, and they can bring these data sets back to the productivity tools and reporting. So customers do need the centralized workspace for their collaborative environment. They need the modern tools, big data tools for processing. And at the same time, because their data warehouse doesn't really require big data volumes, so MPP platform is not required for them. The most cost-efficient solution for them would be stick with Azure SQL database and do the lift and shift of their stored procedures. Notice the integration tool stays the pipelines, Azure Synapse pipelines or Azure Data Factory is the main gateway for bringing the batch processing to the data lake or direct orchestration for stored procedures, as used to be with SSIS packages. Now let's talk a little bit about anti-patterns. When is this pattern not good? When do you need to stick with the enterprise end-to-end? First, obviously, the data volume, qualify the size of the data warehouse. Anything that is approaching 1 terabyte within next year, consider applying the first pattern. It doesn't need to be full dedicated SQL pool. You can start looking into the data lake concept, the lakehouse concept, where you offload part of your data into the data lake and organize the persistent layer only above the top of processed files. Let me give you some final comments on this pattern and the way I think that may take the customer. As an architect, I always think that it's better to have one platform to manage. With this pattern, customer is faced with at least two platforms that they need to maintain. It's Azure SQL DB, where DBAs would go and author and change the views and stored procedures. And that's Synapse Workspace, where they will be authoring and managing the Spark notebooks and T-SQL assets for serverless analysis. So I consider this pattern as an interim step for majority of customers. Interim as in there is a way to refactor this to be merged into end-to-end analytics platform and make it very cost efficient. So what is the path there? What prevents or what boundaries exist now which prevents them merging their data warehouse into the end-to-end analytics? That's actually stored procedures that prevent them to go into the lakehouse architecture. Because stored procedures are run on a schedule, you really need compute that will be running the stored procedures. And that's what lakehouse tries to avoid, unneeded compute for transformations. So one path that these customers can use is refactor stored procedures in native ETL tools like mapping or wrangling data flows, and then put the data warehouse or lower tiers of the data warehouse, bronze, for example, and silver into the data lake, and only keep gold inside the data persisted data warehouse or wrap it within SQL serverless and expose to analytics. That would make the solution very cost efficient and at the same time would allow them to innovate on the modern platform and reduce the number of platforms to support operationally. So that wraps up the presentation. I hope you like the content. So the majority of content is available on Azure Architecture Center. You will see it inside the slides attached. Please visit the patterns. You can also connect on LinkedIn and ask questions about the topic. Now we will open floor for Q&A. Thank you very much.